Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 77, Christina Hooper, how to tell your story as a guest on podcasts and her story. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast if you love business and real stories from the trenches. And after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share if we've earned it. Hit that notification bell too if you're on YouTube so you don't miss each episode. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Christina Hooper. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So today we are going to, now, if you followed The Builders for a while, one of the things I've instituted is that whenever the first time we have somebody on, we're going to talk all about their story. And because we want to hear about, I enjoy listening to people's journeys and what made them the person they are today and all that, and diving into all the various avenues there. But as I started to realize that we have a lot of first-time guests, and we're only talking about entrepreneurial stories, which is not bad, but I do always want to mix it up and talk about other things like the business itself, or building a product, a service, or teams, or whatever. So we're kind of opening it up a little bit. The first episode doesn't have to be that. Maybe we'll circle back to it eventually. But so in this episode, we are going to talk a little bit, because we were talking about her story. I think she's got a dynamic story from what I know. Actually, we had an amazing intro call. I always talk to people a few minutes before the podcast, before the podcast, but an intro call days before the podcast. And usually that's 15, 30 minutes. We talk for a couple hours. So we could really hit it off. So I know we're going to have an awesome conversation today. So with that, Christina, would you like to, tell us a little bit about your story, how you became the entrepreneurial spirit you are today, how you came to be doing what you're doing today, what you are doing today, and we'll take it from there. And by the way, we are going to mix it up a little bit, because she's not only going to tell her story a little bit here, she's also going to tell us, talk about actually telling stories, because she's a little bit of an expert in that. Yeah. So we'll get to that. You're on.
Okay, here we go. So, whenever you're telling your story, they pretty much all come in a few different flavors, right? Like, everybody's entrepreneurial story starts in a couple different ways, where they, set out and they had the, 11th hour, everything was going wrong, and they had their, $1 million napkin or whatever, insert blank epiphany, and that turned it all around. So that's one style of story. Then you have the more boring style, like mine. I wasn't trying to be an entrepreneur at all. That's not what I set out to do. I hated working a job in a cubicle. Cubicle feels sucked. So I don't have a big dynamic 11th hour thing. I just trudged along because I didn't want to go back to a cubicle. So it's like that was my entire thing. Every time that, the rearview mirror, that cubicle was getting a little bit closer and closer, it's like, nope, I'm not doing that. And I would just struggle and do whatever and learn something and go talk to another human or absorb information, right? So that was kind of what set me out on my journey, was just not going back to a cubicle. And so I made myself a really good job, basically, with the worst boss I've ever had, me, and set out to figure out how to fix that eventually when I kept seeing all these other entrepreneurs, right? Like, entrepreneurs are the rock stars of our generation right now. It is so easy to be like, I want to be them. I want to be on the stage. I want to have adoring fans. I want to be. So it's like your whole story is getting away from the thing that you had, you were at in the past, to create a future that you wanted. And then you watch other people living futures that you never even thought you wanted when you first set out. So now you're hell-bent on trying to figure out how to make that happen. And it's just all over the place. But everybody's story is the same. Everybody's story is the same. So how do you connect it back?
It is unique, right? Everyone's, that's kind of people's why in the beginning. I personally, I didn't like the ceiling either. Like, I didn't want to have to work for somebody and be like, this is how much you're going to make. This is how far you're going to get in life. I wanted to open that up. And that's where I got into sales. That sort of opened that up a little bit. But then being an entrepreneur, who knows where it's going to take you? The ceiling is gone.
Yeah.
Right?
And everybody has something that they didn't like about being in a cubicle or being in a normal job. It was either they didn't like the hours, they didn't like, they had a terrible boss, they had a ceiling that they didn't want. For me, I saw a bunch of people that, did the thing you're supposed to do. I went to college, had, 2 kids, 2 dogs, a husband, did all the right things at an early age. And sitting in the cubicle, and I'm watching all these other guys that have put 40, 50 years of their life into building this company being shoved out the door because they couldn't learn 3D modeling fast enough. I was in engineering, of all the things. Started out as a drafting, mechanical drafter for a big concrete manufacturing machine company. Very, very, very boring. Incredibly boring. Most of our before stories are pretty boring, right? Working way too much, not, making enough to compensate for it. I did manage to rack up 100 and something computer violations, though, and got in trouble with IT and got suspended for 3 days and then brought back and got promoted to actually go fix
tell
the
us
thing.
a little bit
So
more
that
about
was fun.
That sounds unique. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I didn't really like inefficiencies, so I figured out that theme has carried through into being an entrepreneur today, that I didn't like when something takes longer than it should. And they had lots of things locked down so that I couldn't research and find stuff and learn how to fix it. So I was teaching myself auto Lisp, which literally stands for lost in stupid parentheses for most people that have ever programmed in it, to actually make the computer do my homework for me, basically, to do my work. And I was making it happen, and it was good. But then the little IT guy came and told my boss that I was hacking using proxy networks and getting around all of their firewalls so that I could find the information I needed to learn how to code. This was back before you had unlimited data and you could just do it on your phone, right? So it's I had to hack around.
And there was nothing in your brain that said, maybe this isn't a good thing to do.
I got tired of submitting the stupid forms to have websites unlocked. Because back when you work in Cubicleville, it's the freaking paperwork and stuff you have to deal with is just ridiculous. I could get a website unlocked through the firewall if I made a case for it. But I had to fill out a paper, go through my boss, send it over to IT, and then get the website unlocked when it's I just need the answer to, is it an if statement or is it an else? Or, I just need this little bit of code. But yeah, I made programs that would take 4 hours of work and make it 5 mouse clicks, and it would draw the whole stupid thing for you, and you didn't have to do it anymore. So once they saw what I was doing, they're hey, will you do this all the time?
But you didn't go over to
a computer programmer.
You didn't go over to the IT guy and be like, hey, can I do this? You just, or did you try? And they said, don't. Just I
actually figured out you could use Google Translate as a proxy server. So you could give it a website address, and then you could tell it to translate it from any other language over back to English. And they were they got so mad because they couldn't block Google Translate because we were an international company, so we needed Google Translate. So I finally figured out that hack and quit racking up violations. But
okay,
yeah. So that's a fun one.
But then they found out, and then you got a promotion.
Yeah, they're we have to suspend you because you racked up 130-something computer violations. So I got suspended for 3 days and then brought back and promoted to a salary position as a computer programmer. But yeah. So, good times, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I tried doing that for about 5 years. I mean, it was good. It was a good company. They were nice. They let me take time off to see my kids and things like that. There was no big, life sucks moment happening there. My kids could even come to the office and sit at my desk if I wanted them to, and it was
usually
really not that big a deal.
That's usually another part of the story is the challenges of having kids and family, and it wasn't a challenge. I guess that you weren't an entrepreneur yet, but still.
No, I mean, for me, it was just looking at the future, looking at, when you're working in corporate America and you're just watching other people get pushed out. And it's because you always think you're told, here's the dream, here's the ladder, right? You can keep working your way up. You'll get raises every year. You'll get bonuses. You'll, invest on the side. You'll do whatever. And that's how you're supposed to do it. But then at some point, you've been there long enough and you're making enough that it's better for the company to get you out the door and bring in a new person who maybe they're not as skilled, but like they're going to save them so much money that it's worth the effort to educate them and work them up. So it's like they're just going to keep churning people over. And it was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spend 40 years of my life just to get put out to pasture. Like, that sucks. Like, who wants to do that? It's like, if I'm going to work that hard, I'm just going to go over here and do my own thing. Yeah, and I didn't even have like a big leap. Like, they let me work from home for a little while. They let me shift over into being a contractor while I built my business on the side. So there was no big moment where it was like, I made the leap into entrepreneurialism and quit my job. And no, they let me phase out.
Well, it's no big moment, but you had this epiphany or whatever you call it. Like, this is not what I want. I don't want to be in this machine and have other people dictate what I'm doing or have to start over, whatever happens in that career. You wanted to have more control of your destiny and be able to do things the way you wanted to do things and have more flexibility. And so there's that.
I think that's what plays in sometimes too to entrepreneurs that are trying to move up a little bit. They're trying to do more like guesting on podcasts, do more public speaking, do more workshops. And you see these people that had these, like, their whole world was crumbling. They were living out of their car. They were homeless. They were whatever. And then they had to pick themselves up. And you're like, what do you do when your story isn't that? You know? And it's like, it plays into the imposter syndrome. Like, I don't have a big story. Like, I've just worked really freaking hard for a lot of years. Like,
that is the story.
That's it. Yeah. And, like, you learn that you start seeing themes throughout your story, too. So it's like, if you examine what you do for your story, you start seeing some themes come through. I mean, like that one, you know, with the funny little thing with the, you know, getting suspended and whatever. Like, I wanted to be more efficient. I don't like wasting time. I don't like bureaucratic processes that make no sense. And those philosophies came over into my business. They're part of how my business is built today. I don't like all the nonsense and fluff. Like, I don't really care if my team is like documenting every little stupid thing. If the clients are happy and the work is getting done, yay, good, go. So I think you look back at your story and you're like, okay, what were the things that really mattered to me? What were the times where things were hard? And how did I fix them? What did I have, like, things repeating? Like, I kept getting really smart advice from really smart people. I followed some of it and regretted not following other parts of it later. But I was also hell-bent on, I'm going to be happy. That was the whole reason I did this, is to be happy. And sometimes that meant I made really dumb decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
you know?
That's another, okay, so there's another element, right? Is you have this somehow, from somewhere, somebody either, inspired you this way, or you just always been this way. You want to do what makes you happy in life. And that's not always the easy path. It wasn't for me. I've always kind of been this free spirit. I'm going to go do what I enjoy, what I'm passionate about. Again, that's not always the easiest path, and it can lead to failure and having ups and downs and challenges. But I wouldn't trade it for anything.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's incredibly important to just be true to yourself, be true to what you want. It's like every time I was unhappy in my business, it was because I wasn't following what I wanted. I wasn't delivering the results for clients that I wanted to deliver because I was selling a service that somebody else told me I should sell. Well, I wasn't working with the right kind of clients because I was like, okay, well, we're going to, I started off in like just design, right? I was just doing like graphics design work, helping people build logos. And I was kind of doing that on the side while I had the day job. And then somebody was getting reamed by a web developer. And I was like, well, if I can code an auto Lisp, I can build websites. Let me take a stab at it and we'll see what happens. And I fixed something that had been a problem for her for 4 years in a month, teaching myself to do it and everything, doing it. So I was like, okay, well, let's build websites now. I can build websites. We're a web development company. Booyah. Then I upgraded husbands, and the new husband was like an IT nerd. So I was like, oh, great. We can work with local businesses and we can fix all the things, right? So like at the end of the day, I was trying to help small businesses grow their business. So that trend continued the whole time, but my products and services kept evolving. I went from like graphics design to web development plus IT to marketing to content marketing and it just kept expanding. But the heart of it stayed the same. And I think that's something, if you look back at your story, there's probably a common trend when you tell your story. Like, go watch anywhere you've been on a podcast and somebody's like, tell your story, and you started telling it, go watch the whole thing. Look for trends. Look for things that were happening along the way where it was like, okay, well, I did this because, I did this because, I did this because, and see if there's something that lines up in all those becauses. Because for me, it was just helping entrepreneurs grow. And so like now one of the things we do whenever I take a new client on who's like, I'm falling out of love with my business again. It is surprising how many entrepreneurs I talk to that tell me they're falling out of love with their business or they have already fallen out of love with their business. Like, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that do that, like an absurd number for some reason. I attract them all, which is cool. I like that. It's awesome. We throw away all their products and services. So I just take all of those off the table. I don't care what you do. Let's talk about who you like to work with, and let's talk about what makes you happy. And now let's build a business around that. And so some of those products and services come right back because some of them are in alignment. Some of them are like, why are we even doing this? It doesn't make you happy. It's not attracting the right kind of people. Why is this even in your life? And then we look at, okay, what can you do? What other new things can you add that would help your business be more scalable as well? Like, most of us create a really good job. And I mean, like, if you ever read the E-Myth Revisited, you will feel so called out. Almost every entrepreneur feels called out by that book because we create a job. And like almost every entrepreneurial story, like where they go from, trudging and homeless and whatever to, succeeding is when they have the realization that they're a business owner and not working a job. When you have a company that does marketing, you are no longer a marketer. Running a business is significantly different. Like, Ryan Dye says he's the most recognized marketer that doesn't market in the world. He's been an entrepreneur for a decade. He wouldn't know how to go build an email campaign now if he had to.
Yeah. It's really hard to get out of that mindset or that thinking. Even for me, like, having a web design agency now for 3.5 years, and I still really try hard to call myself a web designer, developer, and I still do stuff. I still do that stuff in between things, but most of my time is running the company and the agency and yeah. So I still do that kind of stuff too. Because it makes me happy. Yeah. So I do limit it so that I don't let it take over my time again. But there's some of it, and usually it's like side projects. Like, I'll even do it on a weekend. Like, I just did one this past Sunday. We did an 11.5-hour marathon website build. Whereas, like, we started at like 10, we ended at like 9 something, whatever that is. And we built her entire website from scratch in a day. And I was like, I did it on a weekend, so it doesn't impact my business schedule. Yeah. But I just wanted to. I liked what she was doing, and I was like, instead of giving you off to my team and it taking, a couple weeks to get this done, why don't we just sit down together and we'll just do it? It'd be fun. Yeah. And I'll take a couple of those. I'm doing another one this weekend for somebody who's going to be a speaker at TNC this year, and was like, Traffic and Conversions for anyone listening.
Yeah, Traffic and Conversion Summit. So I'm going to be there. So if you see my little blue-haired self walking around and you're there, then come up and say, hey. But I've got a couple of friends who are going to be speaking at it this year. I put in my application to speak. So fingers crossed, if I don't get it this year, maybe next year.
What's up?
But, I'm doing it again this weekend. I'm building a website. So it's like, you can keep a little bit of that and have some fun, but you do kind of move over into running a business, which is a lot of kind of boring stuff. Like, you're advising, you're doing vision, mission work, things like that. But that doesn't mean that it's not fun. So, take you, for example, building websites, because we both come from that background. What you really like doing is the transformation that you get for the client. You like the client being happy on the other side. Yeah. And you can still participate in that process, even if you're not doing the nuts and bolts. Like, you can still talk to the clients and talk about the strategy, and you can still be there on the grand reveal. And you can still get the client being like, oh, that is so awesome. I didn't even think about doing that. And that is so cool how you added that into the site. And you can still have those moments without having to do all of the other work. And you can have so many more of them because you're not doing the work. You spend all day on strategy and grand reveals while you've got a whole team of web developers going and doing all the hard work. So now you're having 1 or 2 of those conversations every day with somebody where you're like, hey, let's show you your new site. You spend all day getting the good vibes. without having to be up at 11 o'clock troubleshooting something that won't work so that it's ready before before you meet with the client the next day.
I think the big lesson, well, for me, it's you can, when you have your own business, you should be able to do the things you want to be doing or that bring the most value to your business. And that's exactly right. Like, I don't need to, I feel very good that if there's a bug, I can usually give that to somebody else to fix and, or do some troubleshooting that maybe I don't want to do today. At the same time, I sometimes have to jump in there and do that, but yeah, for sure. So look, before we go any further with that, let's pick up. Where did we leave off with your story?
That's the cool part, though. I've been weaving it in so that it's fun. I'm sharing little bits and pieces, but you're not having to listen to me proselytize about, I was born on a cold day at, at the end of August in the year of 1983. Did they really?
They actually jokingly did that. They said, well, I was, they had some really cool. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah. Anyway, but I'm curious still. We were at this train. You were, and I like how you're weaving it in. But this is good. This is what this podcast is like. We just go with the flow, kind of bob and weave, and But so you're in it. You got out of the cubicle. You didn't want to do that, and you wanted to become an entrepreneur, and you started building stuff. And then you had all this stuff happening. One of the things that I've talked about on this podcast, and I talk about just from my personal experience, is one of the ways you find yourself and find the thing that you were built to do is this journey of just trying a lot of different things and getting it wrong a lot, or having to pivot. I've had to pivot a number of times for various reasons over the years. And then all of a sudden, one day, it just all kind of comes together. How many different phases was that for you? Like, because you were doing websites for a while. I think you told me you were doing hosting too. You were a reseller.
Yeah.
And you got out of that. We added
hosting and stuff in with the websites. We're currently getting out of that because that is it's been about 7 months of getting out of that. We had over 100 sites hosted with us. So we're trying to do it the most ethical way possible. We turned off their billing and stuff and gave them plenty of time so that everybody's basically hosted for free until they move. So there's no billing concerns or anything like that.
Sorry, I'm going to interject again. I'm going to interject again. So I was a reseller 2 years ago, and most of my I did sell it standalone as well, but most of mine was from I included it as a bonus with the memberships. And so I had probably 150 people or 100 plus people. I don't think they were all using it, but they were all on there. But I had this one person, I had gotten everybody off, but this one person that I had to keep a whole server just for him for a while. He wouldn't leave, and he had all these sites on there, and yeah. Anyway, go back to your.
Oh no, we're my assistant's been kind of going through and she's managing this whole process. So she's even started getting pretty scary with people because she's like, we will not be in that situation where we have these last 3 people and they won't leave and we can't turn the server off. So she has been every week or so sending scary letters in the mail, even in red envelopes. Yeah, and then she's been calling them and telling them hey, we are turning this off of it. She keeps giving them a date. She's like, as long as you're talking to me and working with me on it and actively getting it moved, we'll work on it. But if you're not talking, she's like, I am literally going to download their entire website. I'm going to put it on a flash drive and I'm going to mail the thing to them. And then I will email them a copy with a link to it as well. And I'm going to turn everything off so they get scared.
Well, sometimes that's the only way to get their attention is you just turn it off. And then when they contact
she's been having all kinds of adventures on that.
I understand that challenge all too well. Yeah, that's why today with my business, I just help them get their own hosting with a reputable web host and maybe help them manage it there. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole. Let's digressing into that. But you've tried these things though. That's one of those probably examples where you did something, you made that decision to do it, but years later you're like, this is not a good fit for us, or we evolved and we don't need to do that anymore. Don't want to do that.
Well, a lot of it is looking at what you're really good at and then looking at what your clients need. So, we had the epiphany that the hosting piece wasn't really our skill set. Like, it would take us longer to fix something than it would a reputable hosting company, and I didn't really want to hire a person just to do that. It didn't make any sense. I wasn't the best option for my clients. There were way better options out there for that piece. And then we could do the maintenance piece, and I was like, well, that's cool. But then I found that there were better services for doing the kind of just-in-time maintenance, like it's 11 o'clock at night and something's doing something stupid maintenance. And I found better solutions for that. So I was like, well, I'll just refer them over to those. Those people can do that way better than we can, so we'll do that. And then we just mostly focus now on, being somebody they can call when they're like, who do I call? Like, my website's doing this, or I want this done. Is that you or someone else? And it's like, so we're always the first touch. They can always call us first, and then we'll say, like, hey, you need to go here. WP Fix It or wherever. And that's the kind of thing that's going to be cheaper, faster to go there than it would be to come through us. But if they're like, hey, I want to add a quiz funnel to my website, then like, no, we'll help you with that. That's not something you want to go somewhere else for. So we try and just become a resource. And if we're the best option, then we do that. It just goes back to, what that consistent story was the whole time, that I wanted to really make an impact. I want to make people happy, and I want to help them grow their business. And if we're not doing that, if we're not the best choice to help someone grow their business, then I want to point them to someone who is. Right. So I got really good at kind of watching for different things that are wrong in the business. And then, like, if it's not me that fixes it, let me make an introduction to someone who can. Like, I hate ads. I have tried to be good at ads. We've offered ads for people in the past because you're a marketing agency, and we were, doing organic marketing. We drank the HubSpot Kool-Aid, and it's all about inbound. I must do the inbound marketing, put out lots of content, tons of content, and then get all the leads. But then, that takes forever. That takes like 9 months, 12 months for a website that has no traffic. Yeah, and you're trying to convince someone that, so then really smart marketing agencies were like, run ads. Then you can get traffic at your content while it's still brand new, and just pay for the traffic while you're waiting on the organic to pop up. So I'm like, well, that makes sense. Let's go run ads.
Good. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. Makes absolute sense. Let's go run ads. Yeah. Quickly discovered I really sucked at actually running ads, and nobody could tell me why. Like, I even paid, like, Billie Jean, who's, like, god of ads back in the day, to do, to tell me what was wrong with the ads. I'm like, why is this not working? I paid, like, $5,000 just to tell me. I'm like, I've talked to every expert I can talk to. They've poked around. They've looked at things. They were just like, well, these should be working.
They should be working.
You're doing all of the right things. And I'm like, great. I can follow instructions.
Well, I mean,
and yet it's not working.
As somebody that's been in done advertising, I mean, sometimes it's something elusive. It's something, it may have worked in every other market, in every other business that you've tried to run ads for, but this particular one has a special flavor of people that you're putting these ads in front of that don't want anything to do with it.
Everything. Different creative, video, images, different, short form, long form. And I'm a really good copywriter. Yeah. Like, I know how to write good, compelling, story-based copy. I know how to do the copy. We did all of that. We were doing the landing pages. We tried different offers. I put so much time and money into making trying to figure out this one thing, that it was ridiculous. Now I'm like, I have really smart people that I will refer you to. I've got a couple of Google ad agencies. I've got a Facebook agency. I understand ads. And they like that I understand the rest of the funnel, because they've specialized in doing the ads and the ad funnel piece. And it's like, I know how to make the rest of it work. So I've made some really good strategic partnerships with a couple of ad, agencies where it's like, I will do this, and then you will do that.
This is an excellent lesson in here too. I'm going to try to prevent myself from going down the rabbit hole of talking about advertising, because I can get a little, even though I don't do it anymore, I can get excited about it. But one of the things you're doing, and that I have done as well with my agency, is define what we're going to do. And then, like you said, kind of create a network of other agencies or people that you can create those strategic relationships with. Like, if somebody comes to me, now we'll do baseline, basic SEO and stuff as an example. For a website, out of the box stuff, or a little Yoast, dash on-site stuff. We do that. But if somebody really needs they really care about SEO, or they really care about pay-per-click advertising, or they really care about these different things, we have built relationships where we'll partner up with somebody else or just refer that traffic or refer that person. And I think that's really good because it kind of keeps you in your wheelhouse, keeps you more focused, and you can just be dynamic at what you do.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's because you don't have, there's a lot, you see a lot of agencies or a lot of people out there trying to be all things to all people, or, you know, and it's not easy to do that. Even if you got a larger team, you're still managing all that. You still got to, in different teams, you got to manage in different ways. Managing a creative team is way different than managing a technical team or a marketing team or whatever. So.
Yeah, especially as an entrepreneur, when you start managing multiples, like you're managing internal managers, you're managing creative people, you're managing technical people, and it's different personalities, different skill sets, different, like it's hard to create even just like company rules that apply to everybody, because like some people, if you're like, I need you to relentlessly track your time on all of your projects, that's just going to break them. They can be really smart and really great at what they're doing, but having to click that stupid time tracking button and click up is just like, oh my God. So it's like, do you really want to stress that person out? You know, so it's like you have to, you know, pick your battles. You have to think about what's in the best good of the company. And it's like a lot of that kind of stuff I'm still learning. I mean, that was something that as I kind of evolved on my little journey, you know, where it's like I was doing the job and building the websites, and I kept hiring people to, you know, do other different various pieces. I really didn't like talking to clients most of the time. I really liked doing the work. So I was like, I'm going to get other people to talk to the clients. That didn't go well at all.
that's
because it was like, yeah, I was doing the sales and getting the clients to come in, and then I was being like, I don't want to talk to them about their project and manage the project. Can y'all just manage them and come get me when I'm done? But I wasn't delegating responsibly because like I was the one doing the work. So I was like trying to hire people to manage me.
Yeah, basically.
Which I've talked to a bunch of other people that have done that. And it's like, I'm going to do the sales and bring them in, and then I'm going to give them to you. And then you're going to be my boss while I go build the thing. And then you're going to talk to the client. And it's like, you can't hire a boss for yourself. That's a problem.
Yeah.
So I learned that one the hard way. And it took me an embarrassing number of years.
Really?
To really figure that out and be like, okay.
I think you're the first person that ever told me to
anymore.
I think you're the first person that ever has told me their approach that was like that for, like I to have somebody see. I mean, I get it because I kind of have that feeling too. Like sometimes I wish I could just be building the stuff and doing the stuff behind the scenes. Somebody else could take care of the clients, but I imagine that's because they're, you know, if you, especially if it's you got them through networking or you already built a relationship with them. You know, it's like we work with I work with agencies. Where that's happened. I've seen that happen through other agencies, like marketing agency, where they'll have account managers come in, but that the owner of that he's always attached, or she.
Yeah,
they're always attached. They're always in that conversation, and they're always there to. So there's always there's a presence there always, and so it's still important to. There's ways you could do it where you can have other people. Communicate with.
It's a really awkward place to. So the only way to do it and it really work is when it's your assistant is helping with the communication, not like an account manager. So it's like my assistant's going to make sure that, you know, the meetings are set. They're going to communicate, you know, what we're going to be talking about on today's call, and they're going to. So they're assisting in facilitating communication, but they're not project managing the project. And so like I think the trap that I fell into, and then I know I've talked to other people that have fallen into it, was I wanted a client manager to manage the project because I was taking on more than I could take on, and it was hard to hire a web developer that could do it the way I could do it, that could do it at the speed that I could do it. Like I didn't have time to hire and train someone else in the skills that I had. So I was our best and only. I was like, well, let me hire support roles like client managers and project managers and things like that. But when you hire a person whose responsibility is to project manage and remind the boss that we have a meeting coming up. You said you were going to have the website done by then. You said you were going to be this far on the website. That's what you had me tell them. Are you close to doing that? No, I'm not. Leave me alone and let me work. And,
I don't like this.
I stayed in that trap for way too long.
I don't like this because this is exactly where I am right now. Like, I'm trying to think of how to replicate myself and or bring somebody in that can help me, because I'm at that point of scale where if I just add one more larger client or one more big account, of some kind, that my brain is just going to explode. I'm going to lose control of everything. But every time I think I can't get busier, though, I add another client or something, and I handle it. So far.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just...
Well, and I mean, entrepreneurs are really good at failing forward. Like, we'll just keep taking on, and somehow we think it's okay because ultimately it works out. We just have this magical way of everything working out as entrepreneurs. A lot of us do it. It's like, I mean, you may work way too long. You're working way too many hours. You're doing a lot of things that don't make you happy. I had to let go. I think, especially in web development, one of the biggest things I had to let go of was that custom coding wasn't the best solution all the time. That, like, the clients didn't care. The amount of time that it took me to build the website, even though on the back end, it was way better. It was amazing. It was a much stronger thing. It could be totally customized to their needs. It was fantastic. It was great. It was just mwah. They didn't care because all they saw was what the end result was on the front end. So it's like, well, dang it. So I started looking at ways I could make it faster. I built block libraries of code that we could use that we could just plug and play and build stuff up. I had 4 different versions of headers that we could just plug and play and put it all in. And I think I told you some of this last time we talked. And then had all of that built, and then Flexbox came out for CSS. And all of my libraries of stuff, useless, because Flexbox is the better option. Do my clients care if it's built with old school CSS, JavaScript, PHP, or Flexbox? No. They don't care. I cared because Flexbox was the better option for responsive design. So if I was going to give them a stronger code on the back end, I needed to redo all my... And that was okay, am I a SaaS company or am I a marketing agency? Because at that point, I was building themes and stuff for WordPress and building custom code blocks and libraries. But that wasn't my business model. The money I was making on that was just using it for my clients, not selling it in a marketplace. That would have been a whole other business model that I would have had to add on to my already overloaded business model.
I think that's where
I just didn't have my, stuff together to do that.
I think, and I think that's where we're actually different in that when you say that's not your business model, you're a marketing agency. And we do a lot of that custom stuff. We do a lot of, and we want to find ways. I've talking to you. You always inspire. The few times we've talked now, you inspire me. Talking about Thrive and all this stuff, that does sound a lot easier. But at the same time, we are not a marketing agency. We are a web development, design and web development agency. This is what we do. We do the custom stuff. We do all that stuff. And so,
but even being the SaaS model, because I know you said you were making themes once upon a time, or still do, and you were selling those and things like that. That is an entirely different business model. And I think that's one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm guilty of this. At one point in time, I had 5 different websites and brands going. And I came back from Scalable Impact Live last year, and I was like, I get it. I need to simplify and focus. So I pulled them all back down into one. I think we're let's just launch this new product. Because it just makes sense, right? You're building themes and stuff for clients. How easy would it be to just make one and go sell the theme? That's a different business model. Now you're a SaaS company. Yep. You're selling a piece of software. You're selling a theme that you have to maintain. You have to put marketing energy into. You have to, that's a different business model than building websites for clients. Yes. So now you run functionally 2 different businesses. Even if you're putting them under the same brand, you're not breaking them out into separate, LLCs, DBAs, and all that mess. You are still running 2 functionally different businesses. To do that. And, that requires you to step up as an entrepreneur even more. You can't be in the doer box because now you're managing multiple businesses.
It's different. Yeah. Yeah. Which you can do. You can do. It's not,
you
not
absolutely
that you can't
can. But if you're sacrificing one to make time for the other. Yeah. Well, see, and that's a different one. So when you're a business owner, you can have like two primary roles if you've actually gotten yourself out of the day-to-day doing. And basically you're either the CEO, so your visionary leadership, things like that, or you're the spokesperson. And so a lot of us are kind of straddling both, and those are really two full-time jobs. And they start competing with each other, and we see that in, like, I don't have time to go make social posts and write blog articles and make videos and be a guest on podcasts, or I don't have time to manage all of these projects and clients. Somebody's got to help me with some of this so that I have time to go do the marketing and the sales. And it's like we look at it as just two things, like a couple things that need to happen. That's just our job, but it's really two different jobs. Being a spokesperson is a full-time thing with an assistant, usually, to go like get you booked, to make sure that, you know, stuff is happening that needs to happen. If you're doing things in person, that you have, you know, hotels and planes and all of that kind of stuff handled, that your schedule's balanced, that you're not like, it's a lot. And I think we don't think about that sometimes.
You have to, because like one of the things, you know, with podcasting, I have this agency first thinking. Even with having other products, I always talk about this on my podcast. I'm agency first. Like that comes first. That's the priority. Everything else will get delayed. Doesn't matter if I'm helping a client or doing something. It's the agency, because the agency is most of our revenue. So, and it's, you know, what we're passionate about. Anyway, but one of the things that I found out with, so the podcasting, I'm like, well, I saw that as a marketing piece and a content piece, and that's going to help us give us more content, do more stuff, get more exposure, do all that stuff. But I wanted to keep it small. I'm like, but I just need to whittle out this time for it every week, get really good at my processes, get really good at the editing process, all that stuff, and keep it contained. But I realized in the 77th episode, in that time frame, it's like a whole thing on itself. It wants to grow, it wants to be bigger, and it needs air, and it needs to do. And so I see it now as like, this is like another like business. This is like a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. And so that's something you have to be thoughtful of. I mean, if you want to be successful at it, I don't want to go into something and not be successful at it. I mean,
that's a whole nother job role even too. So not just the podcast, but so you got the spokesperson aspect, right? Where you're getting out, you're being seen, and you're creating content. But then you've also got the relationship development aspect. And some people even have like full affiliate program managers and things like that. So it's like you would make the relationships that introduce them to your affiliate program manager, who would set up the affiliate JV partnerships, whatever you want to do, when you find the right people and you talk. So there's so many different job roles and all of that are actual like whole humans do just that piece. And as entrepreneurs, we're like trying to be 10 humans at one time. Yeah. And it's immense. And another problem that comes in that, you know, I'm starting to make the journey to like 3 to 5 year path to replacing myself in the day-to-day like running of the company. Because when you want to sell it and exit it, particularly with an agency, you have to get yourself removed. Right. Like it has to be able to run without you. Even as you move into the spokesperson realm, like you can't be the main source of income for your business, which is something that I know contradicts a lot of stuff I say in the personal branding realm. But essentially it's like 7 to 10 year path of like, hey, here's a business. It's easier to grow it and scale it if you pull a spokesperson out and you use them to build the brand. And that's cool. That's great. Do that. It absolutely works. That's what we help people do all the time. But then you have to make the brand stand alone and then let the spokesperson move over here where they start making money on their own as like a consultant, as a speaker, as a, you know, things like that. And they can still absolutely send money, you know, send clients back over here to the company. That's cool. But they've also built relationships with other people who are also sending stuff back to the company. So they've diluted their influence. They're not the 100% of the reason why people come. They're like 5% of the reason people come. And so then you can start moving into where you can actually sell the company. And it's like, this is something that if you ever look at like Roland Fraser's stuff with his Epic Challenge, one of the things he talks about is the 5 exits. And you need to know what exits you're shooting for over what time frame. Like your first one is to exit the line. Like you're no longer doing day-to-day work. Your next one is to exit staff. So you're not on the staff. You're not like a client account manager. You're not doing sales, whatever. You're actually functioning as a true CEO. Then you exit the org chart. So you're not even a CEO. You don't have a job duty. You just still like you're on the board. You're advising the company and keeping it going the direction, making sure people don't do anything stupid that's out of line with your vision for what you built. Then you exit the board and you're still an investor. So you don't have any say in really what's going on, but you're still making some money off of the like profitability of the company. You're around if people have questions, whatever. And then you exit ownership where you have nothing to do with it anymore. You're not making any money on it. You're gone. You've moved on. And I think like to really grow and scale a company, you have got to exit the line and you have got to exit the staff. You've got to function as a CEO. And that has been like a lot of screw ups to figure that out along the way over 15 years. But still not fully there, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. It's way off for me. Like I'm just getting started. I'm not even off the line yet. Most
of us aren't.
But I talk.
I'm not completely off the line either. I'm still one of 2 web developers on our team, and I'm our primary graphics designer still because it's just my skill set. I like doing it. So there's still some pieces that I like doing that I haven't let go the way I need to.
Right, but you know your plan. You know you probably have your exit kind of envisioned. I would
at
imagine.
Least a gist. I am not one of those organized people that has a documented like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year kind of plan thing. I'm like, this is kind of where I think I want to go, where I just get to hang out with people and be brilliant all day long and have fun. And I'm enjoying it. So like I moved more into the coaching, consulting, strategy realm, which I mean, that's something that pretty much any agency needs to do, whether it's a marketing agency, web development agency, whatever. Like you need to be a strategy consultant. If you're not consulting on strategy and you're just executing relentlessly whatever the client tells you to do, you're not going to retain a client for more than 12 to 18 months typically, unless you're just charging so low that they're not too concerned about you being a line item on their expenses. Because it's like, I can't tell you how many clients have hired me over the years to just do a thing because they just had a tactic in mind they wanted done, or they just wanted marketing and they wanted more leads. And then I didn't have the conversation around, well, how many more leads can you handle? I wasn't looking at the business model. I was like, hey, you're coming to me and you want to hire me to get you leads. Let's get you leads.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Cool. And you turn it on and then like, 3 months in, they're like, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. We can't handle it. And it's like, oh crap. Well, there I went working my brilliant self out of, making money because when they said they wanted more leads, they can only handle like 2 more clients a month. And it's like, what?
One of the persons.
So now I'm like on the business consulting side. It's like, okay, how can we fix the business model so that you can handle a fire hose of leads and not go crazy? And then let's do the marketing.
Yes. But Lorraine Ball, I believe I introduced you to her. She has a podcast forever, and she sold an agency. I think it was 18 years or something like that. And we talked about that when she was on my podcast or this podcast. And she has some really interesting insights around that as well. And it was pretty recent. The last couple of years she sold it. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely something.
Like I was just on a thing with Roland Frazier day before, where he was talking about that. I'm part of Scalable Founders Board and Digital Marketer Certified Partners. I don't remember which one he was coming on to speak for, but anyway, he was coming on to talk about selling your agency. And he was talking about it's like a 3 to 5 year plan to get ready to sell. It takes like 5 to 6 months to sell. And if you're still the owner operator, there was a lot of really complicated math that I do not want to try and replicate. But my biggest takeaway from it was like, as an owner operator, your business gets evaluated one way. And then if you have someone else who's running the business and you're not like required to make it run, you get evaluated a different way. That essentially means if you want to sell your business and make about $10K a month off of what you sold your business for and investments and whatever, then if you're owner operator, you have to have almost $1 million of profit each year. I think it was a year. But if you move up to that next level, then you only need like $530,000 in profit. So like just shifting your role from being required in the business to not being required in the business means you can exit for the same amount of money with half as much profit. just because of how you're evaluated. It was like 2.5 SDA or SBA, SDE. So I'm getting it completely wrong. It was like 2.5 SDE versus 4.5 EBITDA.
Are you surrounded by notes? You keep looking down and like, did the bullets before?
I have my remarkable. So, like, I don't go into anything without a plan.
Nice.
And it was like, I had a feeling that we would be talking because we're going through some of my story, and my story involves learning how to actually grow and scale and exit.
I just keep, because I'm just saying you look down.
I have my, 5 exits. Yeah.
But you were, looking on a different part of the office.
Seriously with notes, with rolling, but, you can't.
You like Remarkable?
I love the thing. I've bought them for my whole team. We all have one.
Nice.
And it's like, I love them. I take notes on it. I had so many notebooks that I can zen my space now with it.
I use Rocketbook. That's so I can...
I had that one, but it drove me crazy on having to clean it.
Yeah, you do.
And erase the pages and sit there and scan the pages. I was like, I'll just use my notebook. So I ended up with a stack of notebooks again. One for every client, and it was getting ridiculous.
It gets crazy.
So I was like, I'm going to try it. I invested. I think it was $600.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
And yeah,
there's
no going back. I mean, you have all of your notebooks in here for all the different training things that I do. I have all of my every client has their own notebook, and I can just, when it's a new meeting with them, I can just swipe and get a new page and just start scribbling. So I have all of my notes for each client in their own individial notebook. And then
I'm already sold on it.
It's in there.
I'm just cheap. I don't like to spend money.
Me too. But it zens my space, and that's worth it.
Okay. I do love it. It's probably in my future. So we're getting a little long. And one of the things you've weaved in, I believe we told your whole story in there.
We did. And I think the key points to kind of recap, if you're trying to do what I did to make your story engaging and not just a boring thing, was I started each one with I think this is something a lot of other entrepreneurs struggle with, or I think this is something I've heard a lot, or one of the biggest mistakes, or one of the biggest lessons that I learned. So that we're making it relevant to the audience. And I didn't just sit there and, we stopped and we had a conversation at key segments. I did tell my whole story, and I did tell it chronologically, but I broke it up into teachable moments.
Yeah.
And made it relevant. So I know we said at the beginning that was what I was going to give people as a takeaway. Yeah. So, yay.
That's the whole big takeaway right there, is just to chunk it up, find something that's relevant that could be helpful for the audience. Wasn't one of the things that, to add my observation, having talked to a lot of people at this point on this podcast, contextually, I guess a lot of people could be thousands, but I haven't talked to thousands. But enough where some people are, when they're telling a story, they don't give breathing room to those moments. Like you're talking about there, that's actually very true. You can tell those that are more practiced in that, where they give me a little bit of a gap in there to slot something in, or they take a drink, and then I either circle back or I talk about that specific thing. But I like the idea that the guest themselves, are conscious of that and bringing to the table those topics within, It's basically looking at your story topically, in the lessons that are within the story. Looking at the
highlights, looking at the fun parts. Because that's one thing a lot of people, if you listen to most of the stories, it's 70% all of the bad things, then an epiphany, and then 30% good stuff and future awesomeness to come. And there were bad parts, but I didn't really hit on those. We didn't talk on those. We stuck to the highlights of my story. That keeps it, light. And I did talk about things I screwed up. I talked about plenty of mistakes that I made, but not in a way that was going to bring the vibe down. You know what I mean?
That's
you have
true.
to keep it light and fun and relevant. I mean, otherwise it's just oh, you poor. When people tell their story and I find myself wanting to cry, holy crap. No, I don't want to go do business with that person because duh. I don't
Well, I don't
feel
know.
that
Some
way.
people
And
might,
it's like,
but yeah. It's my
no, they'll feel a
soulmate.
connection and they tap at like the heartstrings or whatever, but that's not going to be somebody you want. Like, there's a reason why most of the social media that you see is happy cat videos and dumb stuff, people dancing and whatever, because it makes us happy. We wouldn't stay on the platform and scroll if we weren't happy. So if you want people engaged and watching and paying attention and not like checking their email while you talk, you have to be fun.
Yeah.
And you
well,
can tell the crappy parts in a fun way. It's possible. You just have to poke fun at yourself, and be like, yeah, lots of entrepreneurs screw this up. Or I had really smart people tell me this was dumb. I didn't listen. I did dumb stuff.
Yeah.
I
mean, and it's still, I mean, it is tough being a guest. I mean, because everyone's different. Everyone's got different personalities and you're going to come to play with that. That's why I like to have those little intro calls beforehand or talk to somebody beforehand. Because I want to kind of gauge their personality and how that's going to go. I mean, and I go with the flow regardless. But I like, into speaking at podcasters, I guess too. It's like what I do try to make it relatively entertaining with the guest, and not get too sad and if we start getting too dark, to find a way to lighten things back up and crack a joke or something. I think that's important to keep. I mean, hopefully it keeps people on the podcast longer too. They don't leave.
I don't know. We'll be able to test this one out when you look at your stats. We've gone almost an hour. So if they're still listening at this point, then we did at least a few things right along the way, right?
I hope so. So let's close with this. Where can people find you? Who do you help? What is your avatar? What are the type of businesses or people that you help out there? That's your ideal client, ideal person that you can turn their whole ship around in a better direction.
I help ACEs, so agencies, coaches, consultants, and other expert entrepreneurs. So people that, particularly in the B2B space, that are kind of falling out of love with your business or just at an impasse. You're not really sure how to scale it up, how to hit the next level. You can't grow it beyond your own time investment. I really like to look at how can we fix the business model and then how can we pour gas on and grow it. You know what I mean? Like, how are we going to take it the next level? So that's kind of who I like to work with. The easiest way to find me is ChristinaHooper.com. All of my links to all of my things will be right there. So you can get to all of my social media and stuff like that. There's a free quiz you can take, lots of goodies. So all of that is just ChristinaHooper.com. Pretty easy peasy.
Awesome. I want to be your client. No. Okay, maybe we'll see. But no, great having you on, Christina. It was a great conversation. Hopefully, it'll be helping lots of people with their stories going forward. We'll point lots of people to this episode in particular. Like, you want to learn how to tell a good story? Go to that episode. Listen to Christina. All right. Until next time, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Builders Crew.
Bye.
That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it. If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.